I'm Brian Perry. These are a series of tapes designed to educate you about culture. We'll keep general, culture. Here with me today is my guest, the ambassador of knowledge himself, Dr. Ralph Anttonen. How you doing today, Doc?
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate the ambassador of knowledge. I may or may not be, but we'll let the audience judge that one.
Yeah, I think it's a good title. I appreciate it. Now, Doc, within the first month I had met you, you gave me a great book about Jackie Robinson's life, and get a little shot of that real quick. Jackie Robinson was a great baseball player, and this book really inspired me. And recently, they made a movie, 42. How did you feel about that movie, Doc?
I really love that movie because I lived that period. I lived the 50s. Yeah. I remember Jackie Robinson. I remember all the baseball. I was a real baseball fanatic at that time, so I followed baseball very closely. Robinson came up, I think, in 47. And I was 7 years old, and I collected the baseball cards and everything. I may have even had a Jackie Robinson baseball card, which I found out was worth about $1,295.
Wow.
Of course, it was thrown away, just like my Ted Williams baseball card was thrown away, which was worth over $2,000.
Worth a lot of money.
Yeah, today.
Yeah. Now, Jackie Robinson was an impressive player, not only for his skill. There were other players in the Negro League who had his skill, but for his character and for his strength.
Right.
In the movie, Harrison Ford, who was amazing in that movie, he played the great Brooklyn Dodgers owner. He did a great job.
Branch Rickey.
Yeah, Branch Rickey did a great job with that role. He said it early in the film that we need the right player. Jackie Robinson was young. Jackie Robinson had the resilience against discrimination in the period. He had the right character and the strength to persevere through everything he went through.
That is correct. Robinson was a UCLA graduate. He had experienced discrimination in the Army. He was also something that really doesn't happen today. He could have played one of four sports. He was a good football player. He was a good basketball player. Obviously a good baseball player, and an excellent track and field man. And his brother, actually, who never got the chance, might have been just as good.
Yeah. Jackie Robinson is one of the greatest athletes in history, to go along with Jim Thorpe and other athletes of that nature who play different sports. Now, see, you really impressed me with your baseball knowledge. You picked out an inaccuracy in the movie that I never would have.
Oh, yeah. My wife and I went to see that movie, and Gene Hermansky, who played left field for the Brooklyn Dodgers, was in the movie batting right-handed. He was a left-hand hitter. You can search it out and find out that Gene Hermansky batted left. I'm sure there are other things that may have been not overlooked, but that was minor.
Yeah.
But I did point out to my wife right away that, hey, Hermansky batted left.
Now, something that I think people in this generation don't see as much is the kind of outright discrimination that Jackie Robinson faced. The things he went through was almost a verbal crucifixion of sorts.
Yes, it was. Unfortunately, that generation of the 40s, early 50s, there was a lot of prejudice and there was a lot of discrimination, as you saw in that film. I remember my mother even being afraid when an African-American came to the door, and I tried to convince her there was nothing to fear.
Yeah.
But it was ingrained in the generation. The culture of the 50s was also very prejudicial towards other ethnic groups. So I grew up in Finntown, and the Finnish people lived in their area, and the Italians lived in another area, the French lived in another area, and we were taught, not taught, but told. I remember when I wanted to play baseball against the Italians. Good kids.
Yeah.
I remember my mother saying, oh, you shouldn't go down to Italian. And I had to go to a Finnish dentist. I had to go to a cooperative store because the Finnish was socialistic. So there was a lot of, I don't know if it was prejudice, but it was just ignorance.
Yeah.
And there were all these names. I mean, if you want to know, I shouldn't probably tell you this, but if you want to get a Finn man, my ancestry is Finnish, call him a squarehead. Just call him a squarehead and see what he says. Don't do it.
No, I'd never do it. I think a lot of discrimination does spurn from ignorance. I think a lot of times when people even see a lot of the terrorist acts going on today, and they just outright hate against Muslims, when they're not knowledgeable about their religion or about what separates them. Not all Muslims are terrorists, and it's just the same. There was one point in 42 where one of the announcers said, "Oh, Jackie Robinson's so good because he has a longer heel bone."
Yes, I remember that.
And I remember when I was going to Penn State just a year ago, a couple months ago, And a young lady said to me, "Yeah, African Americans are better at baseball because they have a longer calf muscle."
Really?
I said, "A longer calf muscle," and it's 2012 at the time. And I said, "Wow!" I said, "This kind of ignorance has
Yeah,
persuaded
there
me."
were a lot of generalizations.
Mhm.
One of the things I remember, the Boston Marathon was in quotes a white person's sport until relatively recently, and it was sort of said that African Americans can only do sprints. They can't do long distances. Well, boy, have the Kenyans proved us wrong. Think of the Kenyans today. The Kenyan will take 5 out of the top 6 places in marathons. They're great long distance runners. And that's cultural.
Yeah.
Because they go back and forth from a very early age to school, and it's nothing for them to run 20, 30 miles a day.
Yeah.
It's very young people.
Now, on the event, the Boston Marathon, everyone knows that you're a proud Bostonite, Bostonian.
I live and breathe Boston Red. How's that?
Yeah, live and breathe Boston Red. Recently, tragedy has struck our nation
That is correct.
with the Boston Marathon bombings. I just wanted to get your feelings on that.
That was a very sad day because I'm in Massachusetts. And in Massachusetts, Patriots Day, it's only celebrated in Massachusetts. The Boston Marathon, one of the oldest marathons in the world. It's the only day where students are very happy they don't have to go to school. You have a Red Sox game in the morning, and you, of course, have the Boston Marathon. And I've driven that route. If you drive the Boston Marathon route, they have every mile marker marked. They have the finish, start, and the finish, everything. And it was really sad to hear what happened. Because innocent people got hurt,
Yeah.
and who knows why it happened. We'll probably never know why it happened.
Yeah, I highly doubt we actually ever get any solid facts, from the events that happened. Now, one silver lining of the cloud, that's come out of this is that in acts of tragedy, sort of like after 9/11, then more recently the Sandy Hook incident, it's amazing to me how Americans unite in those times and we come together and support each other.
The Oklahoma bombing, it's, as you say, so sad that we have to have a tragedy
Yeah.
to band together. And the only thing is, I wish that would continue throughout the year. That it should not have to be an event like this
Yeah.
to cause us to band. We should always be banding together.
I strongly agree. Yeah. What really stuck out to me about the Boston bombings was the uncle of the two men that had, set off the bomb.
Accused of something.
Yeah, accused of setting off the bomb. Yeah, you're right. He came forward and said, "Please don't judge my people for this event,"
Exactly.
because he didn't want that to negatively carry over. One thing Bill Cosby once said, and I thought it was about discrimination. And he said, discrimination will never truly die until we close our eyes and pretend that race doesn't exist. Now, see, I don't know if I agree with that. I think how you truly end discrimination is to realize there are differences, but those differences don't make anyone less or more.
I guess what I'd say to the people is judge a person as a person. Don't judge them on any other characteristics but their behavior and what they do.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what the person is, it's what the person does. So judge the person on what they do.
Yeah. Now, recently, in recent years, homosexuals have kind of taken that torch of advocacy for their rights and things of that nature. And Jason Collins, who's is an active NBA player, just came out. What do you think about that? Would that have happened in the 50s?
No, you would have been ostracized in the 50s. I mean, and again, it's just the way it was back then.
Yeah.
Even though everybody wasn't that way, I mean, it's sad that was sort of it's the culture. That was the culture.
Yeah. Now, what do you think the biggest difference is between that culture and today's culture?
Besides the discrimination, maybe. Definitely technology. Definitely technology. We did not have the technology that obviously there is today. We didn't even have cars. We were lucky to have cars in those days. Now a car is a given. Everybody's got to have a car. The most expensive thing in the world is a car. And the next most expensive thing, technology. But that goes down in price sometimes.
You know, I think the technological advances that have happened over the past couple of decades have just astounded me. Do you think it's for the better or for the worse?
Both. It's people waste too much time on technology. It's addiction. Coming out of technology and addiction. Obviously, it connects us more, but does it really?
Yeah.
Do people still seek face-to-face? People still want to interact more than they just do with Facebook, Twitter, Skype, whatever you got.
And I feel like technology is just tools people use, and you know, depending on who uses them, they either work for better or for worse. Recently, I was out at the mall and I saw a family of 5, and they all had their own laptops or iPads or phones, and they didn't speak to each other for the full 2 hours that I was in the food court at the mall. You know, they just sat in silence, yeah. And so I think technology is great, but it should never be at the sacrifice of, you know, personal skills, getting to know people, and you know, developing relationships.
I'm old school, face-to-face.
Yeah.
That's the way I go. Cell phone in my pocket is there. It started out strictly to get a hold of my wife and my children. That's why I don't give my number out.
Yeah.
Then I had to learn text messaging. Man, there's another thing I don't really like to do.
Yeah.
But I don't do much of it. But I can see where it becomes. I can see these people frantically punching away. You see them driving up. See, eventually you're going to have a cell phone growing out of your ear. It's going to become part of the evolution.
They already have those Bluetooth devices.
Yeah,
that you wear
exactly.
around
That's
your
what
ear
I
around
see.
your ear.
Eventually
Yeah.
they'll be part of every human being. It'll evolve. Just kidding.
Now, you know, earlier I mentioned Bill Cosby. Did you know he was coming to McCaskey?
Yes, you told me the other day.
Yeah, I think June 14th, I think it is.
June 14th.
Now, I really appreciate Bill Cosby because in a time where...
He's taking a lot of flack.
Yeah, he's taking a lot of flack recently. He's done a lot of good work with a lot of African-American youth lately. But, you know, he is kind of out there, you know, with some of his theories and things.
Depends on how you have opinion.
Yeah, that's very true. See, I always appreciated Bill Cosby because in an era where people didn't have the highest regard for African Americans throughout the 70s and, you know, 80s, Bill Cosby came out on a TV show, you know, The Cosby Show, and he was a doctor. His wife was a doctor.
Okay.
And he presented to the American family, and he showed that I think African Americans had the same values as a lot of people had. And so I've always appreciated Bill Cosby for that.
My values were determined by my father. I grew up poor. Lived in a cold water tenement. Toilet in the hallway. No shower. I'm not trying to be sympathy, but he always taught me honesty.
Yeah.
And to judge people based on what they do, not who they are.
Now, do you think that your upbringing has made you a stronger person?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I have what the Finnish people call sisu.
This is,
S-I-S-U. You can look it up. My wife calls it pig-headed stubbornness. I call it making the impossible possible. Perseverance, stick-to-itness.
now, you told me a funny story about the bathroom in the hallway.
The alcoholics.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that. Tell our audience a little bit more about that.
When I grew up, I lived in a tenement. I had to walk into the hallway. The toilets, there were 2 sides, one over here, one over there, and they each had their separate toilet. I was afraid to go there because the Finnish people that lived there, some of them were alcoholics, and I did not know if they'd be in the hallway. So let's just say I made my stops quick,
Yeah.
and I get in and out.
Now, I think from you know, poor upbringings and tragedy come some of the greatest, brilliant, and creative minds that we've seen. You know.
That's not me. But I think it made me harder. It also made me more sensitive to people and the needs of people, and that society is not perfect. No culture ever has been perfect. So it didn't make me. Some people say I'm cynical. I just say no. I challenge and question everything, which is what college should be about.
Yeah.
Not preparation for a job, but preparation to solve problems and think critically.
Now, see, I work in the academic and student development department with you and a couple other people.
I'm not working. I'm retired.
Doc works more than he lets on.
I'm not working. I'm just retired. I'm a mentor.
You mentor a lot of kids, and that in itself is great. My first impression of you was that I read a couple of your books. You know, I looked in and kind of skimmed over your books, and you pioneered or engineered or created the Millsville Exploratory Program, didn't you?
Yes, I did. That's a topic for another thing.
A topic for another.
Yeah, I started that, how many, 27, 28 years ago. And it was all built on people helping people, people volunteering. I'm big on volunteering. So Millersville was, and still is, very good at a lot of good people at Millersville helping people grow.
Yeah.
And that's why I hung around a little bit to mentor students, because I have only one skill.
Yeah.
These hands don't work. This still does.
Yeah.
And helping students is why I exist.
I think we learned a lot today, Doc.
And Brian, you want to wrap this up a little bit, because you know this generation can't deal with this long an interview. Did you know that?
Yeah, they do have a short attention span.
Big shot attention span.
I think we've learned a lot today. I want to thank my guest, Doc Rock. Any last message, Doc Rock?
Nope. All I'm going to say is, who loves you? Doc and Mama.
Peace, love, and happiness.